Have you seen the chart on his wall? Thomas leaned in so he could whisper conspiratorially to his fellow civil servant. Every time he gets another letter asking him if something is constitutional, he puts another tick on the chart. Millicent screwed up her face in obvious disbelief. Why is he doing that then? She challenged. Apparently he's working out the value of wains. They say he's looking into a link between the number of letters he gets from citizens concerned about the state of the Empire's finances and the implied price of wains at auction. Millicent's withering gaze showed that she remained firmly unconvinced. Look, it's true. I'm not making this up. He's got a chart. I've seen him updating it when he got a letter from that Sarvos guy last week asking about sinecures. It's true, he insisted. Millicent still shook her head, but she explained, I'm not disputing your version of events, Tom. I'm pouring scorn over the idea of there being a link. Economics is a dismal science, said Tom, and spread his hands wide as if that assertion somehow proved his point. Overview. The price of Bourse seats appears to be dropping. In 386 YE, Bronn Maudson paid 405 thrones for the rights to the Canterspire Circle. A year later, it went to Arlay of the Silent Tide for 260 thrones. It's just one data point, but it's one of many. During the winter solstice, the Senate voted to decrease the guerdon to 150 thrones. Rumour has it that the prices of mithril, weirwood, and white granite, which have at times approached 5 thrones a wain, are dropping. 2 seasons ago, large numbers of wains were sold to the Autumn Realm, and now they're not buying either. Meanwhile, the profiteers from the Sarkophan Delves are offering to underpin the price at an unappealing rate of 2 thrones a wain. Fortunately, any suggestion that the Empire might be experiencing economic headwinds hasn't dissuaded the Imperial Senate from commissioning 5 new armies in the last 2 seasons. So thus far, rumours of monetary hardship aren't impacting the military council, but wise heads are beginning to wonder how much longer the Imperial military can be insulated from these problems. Assuming the Senate really is struggling to raise funds, of course. A number of concerned League citizens, such as Elsie van Temeshwa, the accountant responsible for proposing the tolls on the blood-red roads, and Lawrencino de Sarvos, an economist who produces analysis of the imperial economy, have written to the Constitutional Court to inquire about possible legal actions that could be taken to address what they see as the problem. Most recently, the Vigilance Assembly has also become alert to the problem, demanding more information on the matter be published. The Master of the Mint. The Imperial Senate could give the Master of the Mint the power to publish compiled reports of the information they receive. That would increase the upkeep of the title by 5 thrones a season. Each season, the Master of the Imperial Mint receives detailed information from the civil service regarding the state of the Imperial Treasury. The reports don't include itemized lists of every ring coming in and out of the Treasury, but it does include a breakdown of all the major income and expenditure, along with the forecasts for the future. The title is offered by auction to League citizens at the spring equinox. Despite the fact it is the only Bourse seat which doesn't produce an income, it does sell for a substantial amount, peaking at 83 thrones in 384 YE. Those sums are a reflection of the power the seat wields. Few Masters of the Mint have ever become throne, but there have been few successful thrones who have not relied on a close working relationship with the Mint. The information at their disposal is crucial for ensuring good management of the Imperial Treasury. The judgment of Brother Geoffrey Orchard seems vigilant, but it might disrupt the delicate relationship between the throne and the Mint, and perhaps more importantly, any reduction of their status is likely to diminish the amount League citizens are prepared to pay the Senate for the position. Nonetheless, there is one way that a relatively simple change could be made that might give the Assembly access to the information they desire. The reports produced are the property of the Master of the Mint, but the Imperial Senate could grant the Master the power to instruct the civil service to publish a summary of the reports they received after each summit. It would increase the upkeep of the position by 5 thrones, but that might be a small price to pay for ambassadors and senators to have ready access to the information. Whether they wanted to publish that season's summary or not would be a decision for the Master of the Mint each season. If they choose to disseminate the information, then the summary of taxation and expenditure would be widely available across the Empire in the weeks after the summit has concluded. The Prognosticator's Office. Any ways to reduce taxation identified in an appraisal would be controversial or expensive. The prognosticator would be vital in determining the character of any response. The Imperial Constitution guarantees the prosperity and liberty of its citizens and sets the level of taxation that each citizen is subject to if they own their own property. As a result, it is not possible for the Imperial Senate to raise taxation. They can levy tolls on the use of infrastructure like ports and roads and similar, but they can't do much more than that. Tariffs on foreign trade are one of the few areas where the Senate can raise taxation if they wish, but in recent times the Senate has removed almost all duties from many of its important trading partners, trading diplomatic benefits for a loss of tax revenues. Given these constraints, it would be easy to imagine that there is little the Senate could do to increase tax revenues for the Imperial Treasury, but that isn't completely true. Numerous opportunities have been accompanied by increases in the tax revenue for a territory because of the associated boom in trade and the commerce in the region, such as a proposal to build a Grand Lodge to the Golden Pyramid in Mariv. An appraisal would be one way to identify more opportunities of this kind. Of course, anything the prognosticator's office discover is likely to be either controversial or expensive. If there was an easy, cheap way to raise taxation, the Senate would have done it centuries ago. If the Empire's finances are as powerless as some suggest, then it might be difficult to find the means for long-term investments that won't show a return for years. Still, a suitably worded appraisal would be bound to turn up at least one opportunity to raise taxation. The more focused an appraisal is, such as the one carried out on Surma Sark, the easier it is to ensure that every possible opportunity has been discovered, which could provide more options. Whatever happened, the choice of prognosticator would be essential. For example, Lutamesian Nigoslava would likely look at what deals the Empire could make with the Autumn Realm, or how ritual magic might be applied to the problem, while Naomi of Virtue's Rest would focus on what changes to relations with mortal groups might yield more money. Legal changes. As mentioned, the Imperial Senate can't change the rate of taxation, but there are other measures they could take to increase revenue, especially from the bourse. Following inquiries from Laurencio di Savos, the Constitutional Court have confirmed that there are legal steps the Senate could take that might benefit the Imperial Treasury. Bourse seats. The Imperial Senate could use a motion to relinquish every single national bourse seat. The Speaker would raise an administrative Senate motion to reallocate all available bourse seats as either imperial or national. If that motion failed, the office of the Speaker would raise an administrative Senate motion for each position in an order determined by the Master of the Mint. Any imperial seat would be auctioned via the bourse the next time it was appointed. The motion could be vetoed by the National Assembly of any nation giving up a bourse seat. The Senate could use a single motion to relinquish every single national bourse seat in the Empire. Those seats would then be raised for allocation by the civil service in a subsequent session. The office of Speaker would raise an administrative motion to reallocate all available bourse seats as either imperial or national. If that motion failed, the Speaker would raise individual motions to allocate each seat in turn. The office of Speaker would take advice from the Master of the Mint to determine the running order of these subsequent motions. Any seats that were made imperial would be auctioned to the highest bidder the next time they came up for election, and the funds would be given to the Senate. While it might seem convenient to use a single motion to achieve this, the weakness is that relinquishment can be vetoed by the National Assembly of the nation whose asset is being relinquished. In this case, that would mean that any National Assembly from an affected nation could veto the motion and the whole thing could be struck down. A more focused notion, such as one to relinquish all mithril bourse seats, would also be possible, but would face the same threat of veto. Relinquishment is also a constitutional vote, meaning that not only would it require a 2/3 majority of the senators, whether or not the individual is present, but it would also require ratification by the throne. Ministries. The widespread expansion of ministries is likely to have contributed to the drop in bourse prices. The Senate could abrogate every single ministry with a single Senate motion. The Senate can instruct the civil service to freeze every ministry with a single Senate motion. The Imperial Senate has commissioned a large number of ministries in recent years. These are likely to have contributed to a reduction in the market value of wains, especially the ministries such as the Cinderpath Exchange, which allow the citizens to purchase white granite and the like. It is easy to imagine that these would cause a fall in the auction prices of bourse seats. The Imperial Senate could use a single Senate motion to abrogate every single ministry. The impact of this would be wide-reaching, with the civil service moving quickly to disestablish the relevant commissions. Any unnecessary infrastructure would be removed, so there would be no upkeep, but that means it would not automatically be possible to restore a ministry later. If the Senate ever decided they wanted to recreate a ministry, they would have to completely rebuild it, assuming such a thing was even possible, given that many ministries hinge on opportunities related to foreign powers, special interest groups, or unique magical occurrences. The alternative would be pausing the operation of all ministries. That would be expensive. The civil service would need to upkeep any facilities that weren't in use. Normally such costs are paid for by the regular running of the commission. That would mean an upkeep of 2 thrones per ministry every season they were inoperable. However, it would mean that the Senate could use a single Senate motion to restore all these ministries at a future date if they decided that the price of wains has stabilized. One alternative might be to try and build more ministries that the Empire could use to sell resources for cold hard coin, as advocated by Filio Sangianio di Tassato in her recent judgment in the League Assembly. That would be difficult, however. It is not something that will happen simply because the League priests are calling for it. At the very least, it would need an appropriately worded appraisal to find any opportunities to do this kind of thing, or extensive diplomacy with foreign powers. Sinecures. The Imperial Senate could use a Senate motion to change every tenured sinecure to be elected by public auction in the bourse. The titles would be changed to imperial positions that are auctioned annually. It would be possible to exclude those sinecures that would be rendered inoperable by this change. One estimate, provided by Laurencio de Savos, claims that there are 72 tenured sinecures that bring in approximately 400 thrones of assorted wealth into Anvil each season. If these were all appointed by bourse auction, that would be 18 additional auctions each season. If each auction produced 2 or 3 thrones, it would be a significant boost to the imperial treasury. There are some flaws with this plan. Most notably, there are some sinecures where the income they provide is dependent on the method of election. Changing the method of appointment would be legal, but would remove the benefits of the title, rendering the change useless. A well-worded Senate motion could exclude these sinecures. Perhaps a bigger problem is that many sinecures were funded by citizens who regard the resulting commission as their personal asset. There is no legal basis for this assumption. The law is absolutely clear that the commission is the property of the Empire, and the title holder is simply a citizen appointed to be responsible for it. But there is no doubt that citizens who have benefited from the mistaken belief that a sinecure is their personal property are likely to be vocally opposed to any suggestion that it be allocated in a way that benefits the Empire. Civil servants. Gerard de Sol has indicated that he will make himself available to answer questions to citizens in the Senate chamber between 6:30 and 7 on Saturday. The Senate chamber is booked by Senator Miarin for an economics forum from 6 until 7:30 on Saturday. Lewin Leafstalker, the incumbent senator for Miarin, has booked the Senate chamber for an economics forum they are hosting from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. on Saturday evening at the next summit. Gerard de Sol has indicated that he would like to attend the forum for 30 minutes from 6:30 till 7 if the senator would welcome his presence there. His intention is simply to make himself available to the senator and their guests should they have any questions for the imperial auditor. If the senator would rather avoid the distraction, or the forum doesn't have any questions or need for the auditor's help, then Gerard will depart early.